This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
This is your I tried to warn you leader fan radio network.
Tweet that.
KFAN.com. 3 minutes and 1 second past the hour of 3 o'clock. That is Central Daylight Saving Time. Welcome back. It is the program we like to call Bumper to Bumper. It's our weekday show. We do Sunday sermons every Sunday. But from the start of my solo program, it was called Bumper to Bumper. We considered a couple of other things, but that's where we ended up. I'm the host. My name's Dan Barreiro. Guardsy out today. And I believe tomorrow, Brett Blakemore is in that chair. Were you here with Common, too?
I was.
Outstanding. How'd that go?
Well, I've just got to activate, the brain again. That's all.
Wow.
I'm kidding.
Quite a shot. Well done. Very well played. Power Pack lineup today. Give you more details on the what was formerly called the Borton Volvo guest lineup in just a minute. That'll include, of course, Wednesday regular Pat Kessler in studio at about 5:30. But in any case, we have, I think, a lot of good stuff to get to. The Bradshaw and Bryan KFAN text line has been rebooted for the start of the show, and that's 64686. I did warn you, and I've warned you before, and I'm pretty certain it's not going to matter how many times I warn you. The lesson is not likely to be learned. And every once in a while, this story bubbles up. It culminates in controversy, frustration, anger. And I think a lot of the anger is misplaced. And I think to a certain extent, it's also disingenuous. I'm looking at the headline. The March Madness phenomenon that instantly drives fans crazy. See what they did there in the headline? That instantly drives fans crazy. Subhead. NCAA tournament has seen a surge in replay reviews at the end of games, driving fans completely crazy. We timed just how many hours they've eaten up. This is a Wall Street Journal opus, investigative piece on that particular issue. And they use as an example a tight, tense, back-and-forth thriller. This was last week, first week of the tournament, between Arizona and Oregon. And, of course, the winner advances to the Sweet 16. 1:49 to go. Officials blow the whistle, stop action. We got to check an out-of-bounds play. Did we get it right on who got the ball? That review apparently took 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Although, allegedly, this particular call seemed very obvious to most people. 30 seconds later, we're back on replay to decide once again, does the right team have possession? 45 seconds left to go in the game. Another stoppage for a review. And then, apparently, following that stoppage, barely an additional second had ticked off the clock, and it was back to the monitors for time number 4. This is all within the last 2 minutes of the game. The game itself finally ended. Fan has learned. And the last 2 minutes of game action, off the clock itself, the scoreboard clock, took 25 minutes. 25 minutes. And they do a deep dive that there have been so far, apparently, in the first week alone, 52 reviews, 111 minutes, 23 seconds. You can do the math on that, or they did it for us, thank God, because I couldn't have done it. 40 minutes of action in a college basketball game, and 111 minutes and 23 seconds is nearly 3 full games worth of, as they put it, watching officials huddle, stare at a monitor, and eventually announce their decision. Goaltending calls, hits to the groin, Flagrant foul checked, only for the refs to find out that the player who had been smacked in the face was hit by his own teammate. And, of course, then let's get our rules analyst, Gene Steratore. See what he thinks. Let's get some insight from him on whether that's the right call or the wrong call. And as they lay out, they get the obligatory quote. Paul Brazeau, the ACC Senior Associate Commissioner for Men's Basketball. There's a tipping point where the game loses good flow and good feel. Replay came into being in sports to fix egregious errors, and now it's creeping into every single minute situation. 19 of the reviews reviewed by the Journal the Wall Street Journal occurred in the final 120 seconds, or right when the game is supposed to be, as they say, the most exciting. And then there's the added complication of, okay, we're checking the call to see if the original call was correct, but we got to check, we're here, we got to check the clock. Maybe the clock was off, which to me is absurd. I don't think the clock should be touched, quite frankly, but that's what they do. It's like, well, because, you know why? Because we got to get it right. There's some discussion that apparently in this year's NIT, they're testing a new rule that will allow coaches to challenge out-of-bounds calls in the final 2 minutes, and that would take away officials' ability to review it on their own. Because that's basically what's happening now is when the last 2 minutes, right, is there any doubt? Well, maybe a little. All right, let's go to the monitor. And you got 4 players in your face making that circular motion, and everybody is indeed happy. The people that the disingenuous part to me. Oh, and by the way, then there's the examples of games where UCLA is destroying Utah State. Game is stopped for 2 minutes to check an inbounds call. UCLA's up 21 with 1:49 to go in the ballgame. Also, for when it took the refs so long to get the clock right in Michigan State's win over New Mexico. Even the announcer sounded like he wanted to slam his head into the scorer's table, as they put it. This is the longest clock review in the history of college basketball, but as the pithy writer of the piece points out, at a mere 2 minutes and 57 seconds, it was actually the 13th longest replay of the opening basketball weekend. So here's the disingenuous part to me, because the whole bit is, well, this is driving fans completely crazy. Look in the mirror, fans. You don't have a right to complain, because you're the ones, I think even more than media jackals, who have driven this obsession with getting it right. I think the average rube, especially, when I say average rube, I mean with the rube who's rooting for one team or the other, has driven this. It's, well, look, that was awful. That's got to be fixed. That call's got to be corrected. We got to get it right. And in theory, I get it. I've never denied the theory of it, because it only makes sense with the better technology that we have and the flat screens and the slowing it down and so forth. But it's like everything. It's almost, I'll use the analogy. You may say for players, they're getting the freedom in college basketball and football. They always should. That's going anywhere they want every year. And you might be right. But I'll ask the same question I asked about replay. Is it good for the game? Does it enhance the game that there's that much freedom, that anybody can go anywhere at any point? Change their mind 15 minutes later. And in the case of replay, does it make the game better? Does it make these games better when the last 2 minutes end up as screwed up, as slowed down, as bogged down as it now is? And some people want it to get more bogged down because they want more things to actually be examined and addressed. And I do think, look, the ratings are great. The early ratings, they say, were outstanding. But I still think we're allowed to evaluate the aesthetic that now exists in all sports, but certainly in college basketball at the time where it's supposed to be about close games, or it's supposed to be about who's going to hold on to their lead, or is Michigan State going to hold on to the lead, or are they going to blow it? Whatever the case may be, two teams going hammer and tong back and forth, And all that gets lost because there's another stoppage. And some of it is the length, as we said, it's the length of the stoppages that go on and on and on as well. So that's where we are. I've warned you for years, and I chuckle every time a story is written because this is usually the time where this stuff culminates. Okay, well, let's take a look. It seems like there's a lot more mumbling and moaning about it. Does the research indicate there's reason to be moaning? And the answer seems to be yes, it's getting worse, but we asked for it. So I don't think we can complain about it when we asked for it. I think the sports world is better off with more blown calls, not getting it right, and keeping some measure of flow than it is slowing down these games to the point where the last 2 minutes, 25 minutes it's taking in some cases. How does anybody win? Yeah, one team's going to win, but the sport itself, I think, ends up being a big loser. Maybe we will ask our 5 o'clock guest to weigh in on this particular issue. She's the Gopher women's basketball coach, Dawn Plitzowite. The Gopher women play next round of their consolation tournament tomorrow, a game that can be heard right here on the Plus. I think it's a 7 o'clock start. They're playing, make sure you understand, it's Gonzaga, not Gonzaga, or you will get obliterated by some people. That's a callback to yesterday's program. But maybe we'll get in on her on that subject. Pat Kessler will join in studio beginning at the usual time at 5:30 as well. We will get to reaction to the Vikings presser today that's getting some attention. But you and I have talked replay before, I know, and you've told me, isn't this a significant? Is it worse? Whatever method is used in the kind of soccer you like to follow, is it better or worse or not much of a factor at all? Because I thought even there was a great deal of angst about some of the forms of replay. Is it what's the special name for it? Is it VAR? No.
Yeah, well, VAR. Is the whole idea of sending something to review.
Okay.
Is
right.
Video assistant referee is what it stands for. It's weird because like in some competitions, like in Europe, like in the Champions League, they have what's called semi-automated, where basically it can do it almost instantaneously, where it has them on like 3D models and it basically sends you the decision and like 2 seconds later you're playing again. For whatever reason, in some other leagues in the Premier League, they claim they don't have the technology, so they literally have to manually draw like lines on like an old computer, and it takes forever. It ruins the flow. So overall, I'm pro getting it right, but not at the expense of 25 minutes. Yeah, and that's where the rubber meets the road on this thing, and that gets back to, okay, because put a clock on it. You got 30 seconds to figure it out. Well, I don't think that's realistic or practical, even though in theory it might make some sense and say, that's it. Whatever we got at that point, we're going to get. But the problem with that is if you really believe in your get it right thing, and suddenly at that point, the folks watching on TV see a different angle or slow down a different way that shows they got it wrong, people are going to lose their minds. Instead of accepting the possibility that occasionally some calls are going to be missed. I think the clock stuff is another issue that should utterly go away. If you're stopping the game for the reason of whose ball it is, that should be, to me, the only thing you're paying attention to. I don't think we're here, we might as well take care of the clock too, because that does add more time. And I would say, just leave the clock alone. If it ends up being off by 0.3 of a second, it's off 0.3 of a second. Score, the timekeeper did it the way they did it, and we're just going to let that go. But that's now become part of the get it right part. What's worse is the teams go into timeout mode when the call is being reviewed, and it takes even longer for these refs to get the players back in the court and playing again. That's a great point. And nobody blames the teams or coaches say, hey, we got a little extra time here. We can talk about some stuff. But that does add to the time as well, because then the referee's got to blow the whistle, walk over. Come on, we're done. We're done. I know it took forever, but we want you to start paying attention to getting this game back on course. Replay, you're 100% correct.
Sports are not a video game. The human element is why we watch and why sports are so popular. More replay will run the risk of losing viewers. That's from Steve. Maybe it won't. Maybe we've become so conditioned to it that it doesn't matter. I still don't think that makes it necessarily a good thing. And I'm not saying go out of your way to get the wrong call. Like, let's see if we can add more wrong calls. I just think, I don't know. Obviously, I grew up watching a lot of sports in which replay didn't even exist. And, yeah, there was some anger and frustration. They blew this call or they got that call wrong, whatever the case may be. But what I'm here to tell you is I think what we've learned about replay is what's the percentage? What's the percentage of plays where you go, that's a no-brainer? 20%? Maybe 30%. I would argue the bulk are open to interpretation, especially when it comes to football. Pretty much any sport, I would say, but certainly basketball and football fall into this classification where you go, 5 different people can interpret was that a catch or not a catch, even if they think they know the definition of what a catch is, and you're still not going to get unanimity on it. And so there's still that interpretation that tells me that getting it right is a pipe dream because different people will still lose their mind saying, I don't care how many replay people looked at that. That's not a catch. They got that wrong. They're inconsistent with it. And if you can't eliminate that, then to me, why belabor the point to the degree we do at the cost of slowing down games and hurting flow? Too many calls. We all think, no, we'll just do replay for the really obvious calls, but that's not the way it works anymore. Replay continues to be expanded. In fact, I think if I'm not mistaken, there's a proposal, they're talking about some NFL rules changes being considered at least. And I think there's a replay expansion being proposed or discussed there. I'll look it up during the break, but I think that's up there. Along with, doesn't look like you're going to get your tush push eliminated. That's a Packer deal. I agree. I think it should be. I hate that play. Can't stand that play. I like to me, well, we'll save it for later because there's, I think, a good theory regarding why the tush push should be eliminated. And I don't think it's because some people say, well, yeah, you can't stop it, so you want to eliminate it. Well, find a way to stop it. That's not my beef with that particular play, but we'll get to that a little bit more later. Sports betting is only going to make these reviews more frequent, especially since all these leagues are in bed with the bookies. To that same point, Dustin from Bemidji, it all comes down to gambling, Dan. Every little thing affects betting. Does a fan have any college/professional basketball referee contacts? Would love to hear their thoughts on reviews. Well, that's another whole subject because we have put on referees and officials before, and there's a debate, I think, even within that community. We've certainly had Tim Cheetah on talking about it in baseball, and the former Major League Baseball ref, who's one of us, or umpire, who's one of us. And I do think there's something to the theory that subconsciously it ends up making referees and officials less sharp. I think because they feel like, well, we've got this voice that's going to overrule me anyway behind me. I don't think it's a conscious change, but I do think it can end up affecting those individuals as well. We've also had the thing now where stupidly some play, like an obvious incomplete pass, obvious. They don't rule it as an incomplete pass because we're going to let the play out just in case it's a fumble. And so you got a guy, lumbering 65 yards into the end zone, speaking of adding time, to the other end zone like it's a touchdown when it's like everybody who saw it in live action knew exactly what it was, but the refs are now conditioned, better let the play out, because if we're wrong, they're going to kill us. The fans are going to destroy us. Media jackals are going to mock us and ridicule us. And I'm asking for people to just give everybody involved a little bit more grace, which may not be possible. I don't know. They get more commercials with replay reviews. Yeah, I guess that's true. I don't know. How about the NHL review that was just blatantly wrong on goal the other day? Which one is TP2K guy referring to? Do you know which one? Does one stand out? Have I missed one lately?
I think there was one. I can't remember what game it was, but yeah, again, it's going to be one of those things where you get it wrong once, and people are going to jump down your throat about it.
Yeah, so. That's pretty much the deal. Wow. I'm just disgusted with the Wild. It's time to get rid of the dead weight. That's not related to the subject right now. We will get to the Minnesota Wild. I'll throw out the question I threw out via Twitter, the pregame show program reminder and guest list. What DEFCON number would you attach to the current condition of the Minnesota Wild? And we'll go with the belief that I don't know, like when it comes to nuclear war, is DEFCON 1 nuclear war, or is it DEFCON 5?
God.
Does it count down from 5 and go to 1, or does it start at 1 and go to 5? Can you double check that via Wikipedia or someplace?
DEFCON 1 is the worst case scenario.
That's nuclear war.
DEFCON 5 is everything's okay.
Oh, okay. So So knowing that 1 is the worst, 5 is not as bad. What's the DEFCON number that one would associate with the current condition of the Minnesota Wild? We'll get Blake Moore's view on that in a minute, and we'll continue with some texts. Set up what should be, as I said, a very good program the rest of the way. Please stay. All right, what DEFCON you have the Wild at? I mean, what makes the question interesting today, because you can always overreact to any single outcome in an 82-game season, right? Whether it's basketball or hockey. But what I think got everybody's attention was the comment from your guy Zuccarello in the wake of being edged not by the Seattle Kraken. That's a callback to Fallness, because I mistakenly mentioned I thought we were playing the Kraken last night during the show yesterday, in part because that's what Louis had said, and for some reason it stuck with me. It was rather a 5-1 loss to the Vegas Golden Knights. Your guy, Zuccarello, we got to worry about getting there. Now, he might be right, but that's quite an admission, and as was written, well, everybody kind of knows this, I guess, at this point. We're down to a 6-point cushion for making the playoffs, period, right?
Correct.
Our cushion for the top wild card spot, well, that's down to 2 points, right? As the Blues seemingly have a very good schedule down the stretch here, and they're taking advantage of it. So, look, we had just come out of a 3-game winning streak, right? And I'm not saying people were saying everything's fine at that point, but felt like, okay, maybe you'd stabilize things a little bit. So if you had to assign a DEFCON number, what are you putting it at? I in terms of making the playoffs.
In terms of making them?
Making the playoffs. Just getting in.
I'd say a 3 or a 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I think they can get in. Now, I think the real juicier story, because, I mean, it is 6 points. I think they can scrape their way the last 10 games to get in. Calgary does have 2 games in hand, by the way. I'm just looking at it. So there's always that.
There's that, yeah.
But it's DEFCON, I mean, half. I mean, what's lower than DEFCON 1 for making it out of the first round? Because Vegas, if everything ended today, I believe Vegas would be our opponent, who they just smoked us on our home rink.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, not to peacock about being negative, I think I was on with you in sermons where I was like, we're happy you have your little 3-game winning streak.
Let's see it against better competition.
Which they scored 1 goal in 6 periods. And then if the Blues pass them, which looks like they're capable of doing, then you've got to play Winnipeg, who the fan has learned have already clinched the playoffs.
Right. Yeah.
They are unbelievably good. And you'll have to go up to Winnipeg because you'll have road ice advantage, and they love their whiteouts up there. Winning a round, I'm as low of confidence as ever. Getting in, I think they can sneak in. And it doesn't matter because they've already traded their first round pick anyways for Juracek. So it's not like losing benefits them at all anyways.
Right, yeah.
So that's where I'm at. Making it in, I think they can. Winning it, I'm almost certain they don't, which is sad.
When your demise is inevitable, do you really need a DEFCON system? Wow, that's really cold. By the way, I expect to add Russo to the roster for tomorrow's program, which is, I think, wide open. He's generally been joining us late in the week, and I'll see if that works for him. Hopefully we get a little Russo on tomorrow's show. Saul and Blaine, I really do not think the Wild are going to get healthy in time to put up any meaningful challenge in the playoffs. That's if they hold on to the spot. Sucks this team's salary cap hamstrung, so when you lose key players, there's just no scoring depth. Kind of disappointed that Matt Boldy hasn't taken this opportunity to carry the scoring a little bit more. Paid like a superstar, big knockers need to knock. Well, we have talked about that before. We know who the biggest knockers of this team are, but that meant the next plateau of knockers, big knockers, are there's nothing that says you can't, surprise people and take over a scoring. We've not had enough of that from the people left. Is that fair to say, including Boldy? We just haven't.
Kirill Kaprizov is still tied for the team leading goals.
That's all you really need to know. And he's missed, what do we decide, 36 games already this year?
And counting.
Yeah. Allegedly, we finally got the word yesterday via a couple of Russo tweets that I think he was quoting Hines. Heinze saying that Eriksson Ek and Kaprizov are days away from skating. A few days. I think the term was a few days. And then I said, what's few mean? Does few mean, because ordinarily few means like 3. Does it mean 3? Or does few mean, really more like 5 or 6? But few sounds better and less pressurized. It takes people, away from our necks because they're all frustrated. So I don't know what that's going to be. Bottom line is they're not there yet. Correct?
Kirill has missed 35 games.
35.
And also Rossi and Boldy have both played every single game, 72. And yet they are still, Boldy is tied with Kaprizov with 23 goals. Rossi has 22.
Well, those are the two guys, right? Rossi and Boldy. And that we've brought up before that you got to get more. I mean, even with the people that are missing, you got to do more. You got to get more out of them for sure. And there's been no consistency on that at all. Texts continue to come in. Oh, I mentioned the NFL before we get to the rules changes. Let's go ahead and get to the day at, I still call it Winter Park, even though it's TCO Performance Center, because there was a presser today. Let me get specifically, I thought I actually printed the story that sort of lays out the event. Let me see if I can find it. No, that's not it. Well, maybe I didn't. All right, I'll go the hard way and get it via ESPN.com, as we like to call it. It was Kwesi, right, giving a briefing today. And, well, I mean, you can call it shock jockism all you want, but here's the headline out of what Kwesi had to say today. Vikings want McCarthy as QB1, won't rule out more Rodgers talks. And I know it drives people crazy because it's still more unlikely than likely, but it's interesting how Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah chose his words. He, of course, is the general manager of the club. He says, naming McCarthy starting quarterback is the outcome we want. That's a direct quote. And the outcome we're headed towards. But when asked about, is the A-Rod dream really died? For me to sit here and say that anything's 100% forever, that's just not the job. We're responding to scenarios and different information as it comes. So obviously things can change. But right now, we're really happy with our room, and we're going to look to upgrade it in different ways. Now, again, that can mean 1,000 different things. It's not saying A-Rod is on his way here. I'm intrigued, like I said. Now, the Giants made their decision, right? Russell Wilson. So, presumably, Rodgers is left with, as we talked about, I think, last week, 2 choices. Steelers, or stay loose, stay available, see what develops. And if something develops with another team that loses a quarterback to injury, or the Vikings suddenly seem more interested for whatever reason. There's JJ struggling a little bit. There's a physical setback. He's there saying, okay, can we talk now? And that if that doesn't happen, you just say, that's a good run. I mean, I don't like the way I finished, but I'll just say I'm done. I'm going to retire, and I'll go into, the darkness retreat or whatever I might want to do at that point. To me, that's what the Rodgers' choices are. But it's kind of, I don't think it's this complicated now. If Rodgers, once Rodgers signs with Pittsburgh, he ain't coming here, right? Because I don't think the Steelers are going to cut him. 5 games in. I think that's unlikely. So, but until he is with someone else, I don't think you can. As much as it bugs the anti-A-Raj people, to no end. It's amazing how bitter they seem to be about it. That, in fact, you can't rule anything out, including the possibility of some late, shotgun marriage where they come together late out of necessity. Something changes, like I said, with JJ. They get into training camp and go, oh, man, he actually take a little bit step back. And now the other X factor, though, is what if in the interim the Vikings have signed, I don't know, to $10, $50 million, a backup QB, which they still haven't done either. And I don't know how much that was addressed today. Clearly they want to add to the room. How long are they willing to wait on that? And again, the fact that they haven't yet, and there may even be calendar, not calendar year, but the NFL financial year ramifications to when you make those additions. Maybe that has something to do with it. But once again, that's the other door that's been left open. As long as they don't sign anybody else, it's almost like, well, let's just kind of let's sort of hedge our bets. If tonight, story breaks towards the end of the show, Steelers and Rodgers have come to terms, then this thing can be put to bed. And maybe it will be at some point. Rules. NFL rules changes. Let me see if I can find that story about what we're at least considering. Yeah, here's expanded use of replay. My God. It's never going to be enough for you get it right, people, is it? Ever. The competition committee's proposals, and by the way, these the NFL's competition committee released some of the proposed rule and bylaw changes that will at least be discussed and then ultimately voted on, and that will be at next week's annual league meetings in Palm Beach, Florida, March 30 to April 2. So what are in the proposals? Well, expanding the use of replay assist to advise officials on aspects of a play when clear and obvious video evidence is present. There it is again. That's one person's clear and obvious is somebody else's. It's really kind of fuzzy and I think up for interpretation. Additional proposals. Making the dynamic kickoff permanent. How do you feel about the dynamic kickoff?
Indifferent.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I am too. I don't think it's been the dramatic change they hoped it was going to be. But by the way, the proposal is the touchback spot would be changed to the 35-yard line.
Now that might actually change things.
Well, and once again, it's about offense, I guess. The defense is, never gets a chance. 35-yard line is pretty good field position, is it not?
Well, that would.
I mean, that's 15 yards, you got a field goal. The way kickers are kicking these days. As well as opening up when a trailing team can declare an onside kick. So let's start with the expanded use of replay assist. And it would be to advise the on-field officials on specific objective aspects of a play and or to address game administration issues when clear and obvious video evidence is present. Replay would be used to pick up flags where evidence shows a foul was not committed. It would not create penalties in the event of there being evidence of a missed call. In the proposal, several examples of how the expanded use of replay would work around roughing the passer, intentional grounding, and unnecessary roughness calls were provided. So if a foul is called for roughing the passer, for example, based only on a hit to the passer's head or neck area, and there is clear and obvious video evidence that the defender did not make any contact with the passer's head or neck area, the flag would be picked up. Again, I mean, look, I think that there have been a number of, this has become one of the most poorly officiated plays in football, I think. I don't think there's any consistency on the roughing the passer, but I'm not sure this is necessarily, so I guess you could say, well, that might right some of those wrongs. The problem I have in general with the, advise, so basically this must be the eye in the sky concept where to advise on-field officials. The problem I have is what this is the obvious. You are subject, I think, to whoever happens to be in the position to call down, and you're still involving human beings, right? So different humans might even come to different conclusions at different places, which is why I don't think there's any such thing as making sure that we get it right. Intentional grounding, if that's called, and there is clear and obvious video evidence that the passer was out of the pocket area, the flag would be picked up. So there's a few of these. We'll see. I just think I think it's going to slow more things down. It might make you happy when your team is unfairly called for a given penalty, but I don't think it's going to necessarily help the game. Dynamic kickoff. Yeah, we are talking about 35-yard line instead of the 30. I don't even think I'm looking for the eliminating the tush push. These proposals join the list of proposed rule and bylaw changes submitted by teams the league released last week. Among those were Green Bay's suggestion to, quote, ban the tush push popularized by the Eagles. Philadelphia has a rule proposal of their own looking to align postseason and regular season overtime rules to allow both teams an opportunity to possess the ball regardless of the outcome of the first OT possession. And then there's the Lions one seeking to eliminate automatic first downs on defensive holding and illegal contact. Now, a lot of cynics have said, well, that's because that's what the Lions do. I don't dislike that change. Sometimes I think it is too easy when it's holding. Now, obviously, pass interference, you can't do it because then you'd have too many pass interference penalties. But I think on holding and illegal contact, I'm not sure that should be an automatic first down, to tell you the truth. Because I try to stand up for the defense every once in a while because this league is all set up for offense. Whether that's going anywhere or not, I don't exactly know. But I fear, like I said, we were just talking about replay at the top of the show and just how much it delayed some good games the first week of the big dance. This, to me, is all part of the same thing. It sounds good in theory. It's got, you know what? They're just going to intercede when it's something obvious. But, again, one person's something obvious is someone else's, that's kind of, I don't think that's that way at all. It's kind of subjective. And I don't know, like I said, game to game, how much consistency there might be to that. Are we back to depending on camera angles? Who's in that position to do it? I'm not exactly sure. The tush push, I alluded to this earlier. The pushback from people saying it shouldn't be eliminated are that they're just whiners who can't stop it, are poor sports, and they're whiny and they can't handle it. Well, maybe. I mean, that always, you could say, enters into the conversation. But I hate the play, and for me, it feels illegal when it's behind the line of scrimmage. And that's what a couple people have suggested, that the rule change should be, because we see this downfield, right? We see a running back refuse to go down. He's kind of carrying the scrum with him, and a couple offensive linemen come from the backside, and they shove him forward another 5 yards. I don't love that, but I say, okay, it's downfield. And he's already made a play. The running back has already made a play, and he has stayed upright. To me, the rule should be behind the line of scrimmage. You can't get any of that kind of help. I just don't buy it. I don't think the play is worth this much consternation over it to hold on to it. And I think it's boring, but I also think it feels like it's unfair. Now you can say, well, every team can do it, and I agree with that part. But I like what somebody suggested. If it's behind the line of scrimmage, no, you don't get any help. You're not going to get any help. You're not going to be pushed forward. You're not going to be pushed sideways by anybody. It's a very simple rule distinction. You can do it past the line of scrimmage. You can't do it behind the line of scrimmage. You love the tush push. Or are you, because Packers hate it, you hate it too?
Well, we were the ones that put in the motion, so clearly I hate it.
You hate it, yeah.
No, I mean, the Packers were okay at the love shove, is what we called it. They were fine, but I don't know. It just doesn't do anything for me. To me, it's all about just the entertainment value and the viewership value, because competitively, part of me agrees with competitively, just stop it. But from a viewer perspective, from entertainment perspective, it just doesn't. I'd rather see an actual play trying to get the fourth down.
Well, I'm with you. I agree with that totally. But it doesn't appear as if there's much of a groundswell of opinion in favor of the Packers' motion. That's what I keep reading anyway, that it's unlikely that it's going to go anywhere. So
And I don't think we really got dinged by it. It's not like...
No, right, yeah.
Because the Lions' motion to get rid of the automatic first downs, they led the league in, like, illegal contact.
Undeniable,
so, duh.
yes.
But I don't think the Packers got, like, killed by the tush push any more than any other team did. Lost to them twice, I guess, but... They
should make field goals 50-plus yards worth 2 points to incentivize teams to make a play and not settle for a 55-yard chip shot. Well, but then on the other hand, if you have that kind of range, although I guess most kickers do now, you say, well, 2 points? I mean, maybe 2 points should be 30 yards or something like that. I get his point. You're trying to encourage teams to keep going, trying to get advanced downfield and not immediately go into what might be classified as field goal mode. Ben Lieber made the argument if it's not allowed on defense to push a teammate from behind. I think that's true. And I've never understood, to be honest, I haven't even understood it downfield. I think it's an unfair advantage. I'm willing to live, but I'm willing to live with a compromise. If that's the only way I can get the tush push eliminated, I'll give it to you downfield. I don't actually love that either. It seems counterintuitive it should be, because this game isn't rugby. I mean, it has some aspects of rugby, but it's not supposed to be rugby, right? So the idea that, to me, it should be, a one running back you can't bring down. If he can keep going, that's fine. Now, I know people think it's unfair because then a bunch of defensive players can gang up on him, and he should be able to have that help offensively. I don't like any play where one guy is pushing another guy forward, backwards, sideways, or whatever the case may indeed be. Top of the hour pause. Don't forget, in about an hour, we'll be chatting with the Golden Gopher women's basketball coach, Dawn Plitzowite. They've got a tournament game tomorrow night, which you can hear on the Plus, and I believe against Gonzaga. We'll preview that with her, get caught up on the state of the club. They've won 2 road games. They were forced to go on the road because of some issues regarding arena availability here, but they've handled that so far so good. And as I recall, I think the final round there, Guardsy mentioned, is played at Butler at Hinkle Fieldhouse, historic Hinkle Fieldhouse, which is a very nice venue for basketball, very historic, very much throwback. So we'll get into all that with her in about an hour. Kessler is scheduled for about 5:30. Stay tuned.